This is Sunday Focus, a weekly public affairs program that looks at the topics affecting our society and the people who are making a change in the community each and every day. The people who have vision for the next generation. Sunday Focus presents new challenges for us, keeping you informed with topics of local and regional interest. Now the host of Sunday Focus, Christine Manica.
Good morning. Coming up on this edition of Sunday Focus, I'm being joined in the studio with the meteorologist in charge for the National Weather Service in Sioux Falls, Todd Heitkamp. The weather in Sioux Falls and throughout the state of South Dakota has been pretty active so far this season. But is this active weather out of the ordinary for the city of Sioux Falls and throughout the surrounding areas? Todd Heitkamp talks about the role that the National Weather Service plays here throughout the Sioux Empire, the numbers that we have seen so far this storm season, and he'll even break down the first major storms that took place on May 12th and the Memorial Day weekend. All that and more coming up on Sunday Focus.
You know what really gets a party started? Indoor baseball. Yeah, just find a broom or a pool cue, and you can use like anything as a ball. Cans, bottles, shoes.
Hey bro, toss me that avocado.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to another edition of Sunday Focus. I don't know if anybody's noticed recently, but the weather here around the Sioux Empire and in Sioux Falls, it's been pretty crazy. A very active weather season, to say the least. And someone who knows a lot more about the weather than myself, for sure, is Todd Heitkamp. He is the meteorologist in charge for the National Weather Service here in Sioux Falls. Hey, Todd, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. You know, it's been crazy, like I've been saying, and there's a lot to go over, especially with what has recently happened. But before we get into that, let's just talk about the National Weather Service itself. What does the National Weather Service do for those who aren't familiar with the organization?
Well, the Weather Service is nothing new. We've been around for a long time. We used to be called the U.S. Weather Bureau, and then that was changed to the U.S. National Weather Service. And we have over 140 offices across the entire nation, and we are lucky enough to have one right here in Sioux Falls. The other two in South Dakota are Aberdeen and also located in Rapid City. And then the other ones around us include Omaha, Des Moines, and Minneapolis. And so what these National Weather Service offices do is we provide forecasts on a daily basis. But the main reason why the National Weather Service exists across the entire country is to issue the watches and warnings to protect lives and property. We're the only agency mandated by Congress that can issue tornado watches and warnings. There's not another business or agency or station that can do that. We are the ones that are in charge of doing that. So that's why the National Weather Service exists.
So what's the role for the National Weather Service when it comes to the specific offices, say for Sioux Falls, for example? Yeah,
each of the offices are giving what we call I'll use a technical term, a county warning area, meaning the counties that we are responsible for issuing the warnings for. Here in Sioux Falls, we're responsible for 45 counties. We have a portion of 4 states, Southeast South Dakota, Northeast Nebraska, Northwest Iowa, and Southwest Minnesota. So anytime storms enter those counties, and they are severe, we are responsible for issuing the warnings for those counties. And so all the counties across the United States are separated or divided out to a National Weather Service office that is responsible for issuing those watches and warnings for those counties.
So how did you get involved with the National Weather Service, Todd? Describe your position, the meteorologist in charge.
Well, like I mentioned, that title, 50 cents may get you a cup of coffee, but that's going to be about it. But, it's one thing. I grew up in Adrian, Minnesota, which is a town 30 miles east of here. And I knew in the 4th grade that I wanted to be a weather forecaster. I grew up watching Dave Dedrick and Ken Hirsch, the two icons of Sioux Falls weather on TV stations here a number of years ago. And, went to school at the University of Wisconsin, got my degree in meteorology, and my love for weather continued. And I wanted to be, I have a face for radio, as people say. And so I didn't want to be on TV. I wanted to be where things were happening, on the ground floor of issuing the warnings and really trying to make a difference. And so that's where it led me to the National Weather Service. I've been in the Weather Service now for 35 years. I've been here now in Sioux Falls since 1994. Before that, I was in Denver, Colorado. But again, the reason why I'm with the Weather Services. I wanted to come back to Sioux Falls to really hopefully make a difference, put a face to the name of the National Weather Service, and also change people's attitudes on what they can do to protect themselves when it comes to storms. I think we've done a pretty good job of that over the years. I think we still have a long ways to go, but the National Weather Service is the place that honestly I get to do my hobby as my job. I love doing my job and being in charge. I'm in charge of a great bunch of men and women out at the office that love doing the same thing that I love doing, that they're in it not for the notoriety. They're in it to keep people safe, and that's really what it comes down to.
35 years, wow.
Yes, I feel that old. After the past couple of weekends, it's really starting to take a toll. But yeah, 35 years, and so... It's I've always been known as the weather guy, and sooner than later, the retirement will be coming my way, and we'll decide what the next chapter of my life will be.
In those 35 years, what's probably the craziest weather pattern you've experienced? Whether it's here in the Sioux Empire, in Colorado, what you've mentioned.
I've been on. I'm one of the 3 tornado experts across the entire country. The other ones have retired and moved on, and I've seen many tornadoes in my lifetime. I have seen many towns that have been ravaged by tornadoes afterwards. So I would say since I've been here in Sioux Falls, honestly, in my entire career, probably June 24, 2003, the day of the Manchester tornado when we had 67 tornadoes in one day, and actually an 8-hour period. That was probably the craziest moment of my career. We've had other ones, but that one definitely stands out.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I remember as a kid, I was always interested in the weather, and the running joke was, oh, you're going to be a weather lady. Yeah. No, I was scared of storms like tornadoes and stuff like that. So when you saw your first one right up close, were you like, wow, this is what I worked for? Yeah.
I mean, the first tornado that I seen, I can remember that when I was still a teenager in Adrian. And so I was not in the business at that point in time. But what got me interested in weather was lightning, because I just, I'm still to this day I'm fascinated with lightning. But when I saw my first tornado after working with the National Weather Service, and that's what it really came down to. But I think one thing that really hit home for me was the first tornado warning I ever issued as an employee of the National Weather Service was in Waterloo, Iowa. And I remember sitting at the radar, issuing the tornado warning, going home thinking, yeah, Todd, you did it. You did a great job. You issued the first tornado warning. And then on the news, I found out that 4 people had lost their lives when they heard the tornado warning being issued. They got in their vehicle, the 2 grandparents and their 2 grandkids got in their vehicle and left the safety of their own home to avoid the tornado, and the tornado hit their vehicle and killed all 4. That brought reality back to me at that point in time and said, we have a long ways to go. We can issue the warnings, but we still need people to listen to them. Absolutely.
There have been a lot of questions surrounding the recent weather activity. It's no surprise, being in the Midwest, you're going to see a lot of chaotic weather. And, would you say this has been the most active weather season so far for Sioux Falls and the surrounding areas?
No, not at all. I mean, we've issued more warnings than what we have in the past couple of years, and probably since 2004, I think that was the highest number of warnings that we've issued. So we've had more active springs than this before, but I think we've had some stronger storms earlier on in the storm season than we've ever had before, and especially wind events like what we saw earlier in the month of May. So those types of events stand out, and there's no doubt about that. But as far as active severe weather season, most of our severe weather season is from the 1st of May to, let's say, the first part of July. So this is pretty much on par as far as the number of storms, but the severity is definitely up there as far as non-tornado events.
Break down the numbers. So how many severe weather warnings would you say have been issued so far this year? Rough estimate.
Yeah, I would say about over 175 roughly. And so it's the highest number that we've issued since I mentioned 2004. We've had a higher number of tornado warnings than what we have had in the past 10 to 15 years. And again, that's the challenge that we have, is that there's these the past few years, we've had these weaker tornadoes that have formed, and when they form, they don't last that long. And so for us to get the warning out in advance of the tornado forming has been very challenging, to say the least. And it's also thrown up a lot of questions on whether or not we can actually do that, and how does the public respond to that.
Absolutely. Is there a record currently for the amount of weather warning issues out there?
Well, there's the highest number. I don't know that off the top of my head, Christine, at this point in time. But I will tell you that we're a ways away from that but again, we still have a large chunk of our severe weather season yet to go. We're only talking about the first first week or two of June. So we still got some time to go yet, and I'm hoping for a much calmer remainder of the summer. But around here we go from winter to summer real quick, and that's what happened this year.
Absolutely. Now, typically, how many warnings could be issued a year? Again, another rough estimate.
Yeah, on average, I will tell you that on average, we see about 20 tornadoes, and that's confirmed tornadoes. So when we're talking about tornado warnings, it could be, let's say, 40 to 50, something like that. And then severe thunderstorm warnings, you're probably talking on average 150, somewhere thereabouts. But again, that's just a rough estimate.
If you are just listening to us, I'm being joined in the studio with Todd Heitkamp. He is the meteorologist in charge for the National Weather Service here in Sioux Falls. Now, one of the first major storms that took place, here we go, the first one, May 12th. Not only did this storm affect Sioux Falls, but it affected the entire eastern portion of the state, which is almost unheard of in this day and age. There were a couple of names being thrown around what this storm actually was. Some were saying it was a derecho, and others were calling it a haboob.
Yeah, haboob.
Yeah, so let's talk about each of these storm systems. What are they? How are they alike, and how are they different?
Well, I was actually one that I sent out a tweet saying that this looks like a haboob coming towards Sioux Falls. And what a haboob is basically a dust storm, a windstorm that's picking up a lot of dust, and as it's advancing to you, towards you, you can't see anything behind it. It's just a large dust cloud, and very common down the southwestern part of the United States, and also in the Middle Eastern countries. We don't see them around here too often, but what happened here is that you had strong winds with this storm, and all our topsoil at that time of the year is exposed to the wind, and it picked up a lot of that topsoil and was pushing it towards us at that point in time, and that's what gave us that appearance of a haboob, or a large dust storm. We now call it a derecho, and we don't call it a derecho ahead of time. We wait after the fact, because there's criteria that it has to meet before it is classified as a derecho, and it has to be 80 plus mile an hour winds, and it has to be over a 4 to 5 hour time frame. That storm has to last that long. So that's why it's it wasn't called that day, but has since been determined and labeled as a derecho. The main thing I want people to understand here is I don't want them to get hung up on terms. What scientists call a particular storm, let scientists worry about that. I want people to worry about the terminology that we use in the watches and warnings, so that when it's time to take shelter at that point in time. Don't worry whether or not we call it a haboob or a derecho or a squall line or whatever it may be. That's the scientist in me at that point in time.
Absolutely. I remember my uncle was visiting in town, and that was the day that he was going to go back to the Chicago area, and I said, I don't know if we would get on the road at this time. Maybe you want to leave earlier in the day. So right around, I want to say 4:45, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when I saw, okay, it's getting a little bit darker, and I was on the phone with my boyfriend too, and I'm like, wow, this is actually looking like there's going to be a big storm happening. Then I saw, like what you had mentioned, that topsoil and that dust just blow through. I actually closed the blinds at one point, because I'm like, okay, this is kind of scary. I don't know if I should be going down in the basement or not. And he's like, does it sound like a freight train? And I said, no. He's like, do you hear a warning? No. And then he's like, okay, then I guess you're just fine being in your place. But it was definitely scary seeing those pictures and how dark it was. I mean, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I was telling my family back home, it looked like it was midnight.
Yeah, it was pitch black. And I saw the storm. We saw the storm coming, and I stepped outside the office and looked to the southwest, and you could see it. And I said, "Oh boy, it's getting real right now." And you look at your watch, and we had given people ample warning.
Yeah.
We had issued the severe thunderstorm warning, 20 to 30 minutes in advance of the storm hitting Sioux Falls. But it was the timing of the event. At 5 o'clock at night, with people leaving their homes, leaving work to go home, and everything else, the number of people that were on the road, it could have been a lot worse. And the other thing that could have been made it a lot worse, Christine, is that if we would have had that storm there over the Memorial Day weekend storm that we had a few weeks ago, it could have been, I doubt if there would have been a tree left standing. And that, because all the trees now have leaves on them. And so when you have that amount of wind on a fully leafed out tree, there's a lot more resistance, and that's going to cause that tree to go down. Where in May, with the haboob, or the derecho event, I should say, on May 12th, that one there actually, we didn't have a lot of trees with leaves on it. So that wind was able to just kind of sweep through that tree. And the only ones that really were affected by that storm were the large evergreen trees, because they were, they're fully leaved, as they always are. And they basically are a wind block and can fall down pretty quick.
Yeah, it's truly amazing when you go back and look at those videos and pictures of that day. What kind of damage did eastern South Dakota and Sioux Falls experience? Are we talking rain, hail, tornadoes?
With that event there, it was mainly strong winds. We're talking 80-plus mile-an-hour winds. So we had wind reports up to 107 miles an hour, and I think that was right outside of Madison. But there was mainly wind reports with that one. Then as the storms went further north, the main storm went into western Minnesota, and then more storms developed across northeastern South Dakota, and they spawned tornadoes. The one tornado, the town that was hit by the tornado was Castlewood, and everyone was familiar with that. So they kind of transformed as they moved into northeastern South Dakota. But around here in southeastern South Dakota, southwestern Minnesota, it was mainly all strong straight-line winds.
So officially or unofficially, what would you call this storm as?
Officially, it's called a derecho. In layman's words, strong straight-line winds and 80-plus miles an hour. Is what was responsible for the majority of the damage.
This storm system in particular, it raised a lot of questions in regards to the tornado sirens and ways to stay up to date with the weather. What did the National Weather Service do in order to keep everyone up to date with the latest information?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, I mentioned it in our news conference shortly after that storm event that if you did not know that severe storms were possible that day and did not know that storm was coming, I want you to really check yourself. Find out really what you were doing, how you can better gain access to weather information, because we were talking about severe storms that day 2 to 3 days out in advance, saying that this was going to happen. And then, like I said, as things were unfolding, we issued a tornado watch at that point in time, and the severe thunderstorm watch, telling people that this is a particular dangerous situation. And then we issued the warning saying that 80-plus mile-an-hour winds were going to hit the city of Sioux Falls. So people should have been aware of that. And and I really start to shake my head when I hear people that were standing outside looking at this thing. You're curious because you've never seen it before. I get that. But when you're talking about 80-mile-an-hour winds hitting you, that's like an EF1 tornado. And so people need to be aware of the danger that winds pose. And hopefully after this event and the Memorial Day event, people will have a better appreciation for that.
When it comes to a strong storm system like the one on May 12th and the one from Memorial Day weekend holiday, do you also communicate with the local news stations just to coordinate a plan to keep everybody informed? We
work closely with the media, radio and TV, and we let them know what's going to happen. And obviously, anytime we issue a warning, they take action. Your station here uses the emergency alert system to alert people. TV stations will also go on air at that point in time and let them know that we've issued a warning, and then use their visual communication techniques to let them know, where the storm is at and where is it going.
Since the tornadoes in 2019, there have been a lot of questions surrounding the use and the proper use of the tornado sirens. Can you explain the difference between those tornadoes that happened in 2019 to what transpired on that day in May?
Well, on May 12th, we did not issue a tornado warning, so the sirens were not going to be activated. We do not activate the sirens. I'll make sure people understand that. That is done by local authorities in the city of Sioux Falls, and I'm not going to speak on their behalf, but their policy is that they do not activate the sirens for anything other than tornadoes. So when we issue a tornado warning, such as what we did for 2019, those sirens will be activated. If we issue a tornado warning for any part of the city, all sirens in that city of Sioux Falls will be activated. And so when you hear them, you need to take action. But people have this false idea, you're going to hear those sirens no matter where you're at. Those sirens are outdoor sirens. They're made to warn people that are outdoors to get them inside to find out more information. If you're at home, and especially like on both events, May 12th, but also during 2019, that was when a lot of people were in bed. You're not going to hear it, number one, because you were maybe asleep, but number two, with the wind that's going at that point in time, that's maybe carrying the sound away from you. So again, you have to have multiple methods to receive that warning information. You need to have a weather radio, commercial TV, the outdoor warning sirens, and then also your phone. Again, all tools that you can use to make sure you hear that word of warning.
And I believe with those sirens, that's normally a 10-mile radius. If a tornado, is in the city of Sioux Falls within 10 miles away, that's when the sirens would usually go off, correct?
Well, I can't answer that completely because that's going to be a city of Sioux Falls question. But like I said, all I can tell you is that when we issue a warning, we draw a box of where that storm is located and where that storm is expected to be traveling towards. If any of that box hits any part of the city of Sioux Falls, then the sirens will be activated for any tornado warning at that point in time.
If you are just listening, Todd Heitkamp with the National Weather Service here in Sioux Falls. He's joining me in the studio to talk about all the severe, crazy weather that we've been experiencing. Now, with the latest storm system that happened Memorial Day weekend, that also raised some questions, believe it or not, about the alerts on their phone. Now, I did receive an alert for the phone on May 12th, but this time around, I didn't. But the tornado sirens, those did wake me up. So again, this just adds more questions for people. Why did some phones go off and others didn't?
Yeah, what you're talking about is the wireless emergency alert system. Every phone is equipped with that. Every smartphone has that system. And for some of you, you may actually have that feature turned off. If you did not receive a warning notification on either one of the events or haven't seen anything or don't know what we're talking about, I would suggest that you go to your cell phone provider and find out, what more about that service and making sure that that's been actually turned on. I can't answer, Christine, why some phones went on and when some phones did not go off on May 12th. They should not have gone off on May 12th for most of the people of the city of Sioux Falls because we only issued one tornado warning for, let's say southern Sioux Falls, which would be northern Lincoln.
Yep.
And then also one in extreme eastern Minnehaha County for, let's say, just west of Brandon. Now, really what people need to understand, it's not where your cell phone is located. It's what cell phone tower you're actually on at that point in time. So really what it comes down to is that if you were locked into a cell phone tower in Brandon and you live in eastern Sioux Falls, you're probably going to get that warning notification on your phone. Your phone's going to be alerted. So it's not where your cell phone is located. It's what cell tower you're using at that point in time and where that cell tower is located. If it's in the warning area, your cell phone will be activated. And
during that Memorial Day weekend, what kind of storms did we see here in the Sioux Empire? Again, mainly a lot of strong winds. There was a few what we call embedded weaker tornadoes on the front edge of the storm that, right along 41st Street or just north of 41st. My area, once again.
South of Augustana. That saw a little bit of a quick spin-up tornado, and that's the challenge that we have because the main threat, Christine, on both of these events is not the tornado. It's the strong winds that are coming at you at 80 to 100 miles an hour. These weaker tornadoes are probably going to add another 10 to 15 miles an hour on top of that. So that's the challenge, and the question that we in the National Weather Service have is how do we best handle these situations? Do we issue a severe thunderstorm warning and tell people that these winds are going to exceed 100 miles an hour? We want you to take shelter for this storm just like you would for a tornado. The problem with that is that I know how many people take shelter when we issue a tornado warning. Not very many. Most people ignore the warning. And when we issue a severe thunderstorm warning, there's even less people that take that warning seriously. So that's the huge challenge that we have in trying to figure out how can we get the public to respond in the manner that we want them to protect their own lives.
For the difference for me in 2019, when my power went off, that's when I knew, okay, let me go down in the basement, because I first saw the severe thunderstorm warning on my phone, and I said, that usually cancels out a tornado warning sometimes. But then once I thought that the power went out, and I just looked outside, and I saw that wind starting to funnel around, along with my neighbors saying, okay, are we going to go downstairs? And I said, yeah, I'm going to go downstairs. And this time around, hearing the tornado warnings, my boyfriend, his first tornado, he shot up. He's like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? He forgets his shoes going down the stairs. And I just said, you know what? Next time you just got to remember your shoes. He's like, there's going to be a next time. And I just said, well, yeah, this is the Midwest. This is this time of year. So besides what we've already have seen, Todd, what else can we expect to see throughout the summer?
Well, let me back up a little bit here. I think you're hitting on a key point, Christine, is that where we talk about people don't listen. They hear the warning, but they don't take action. Mm-hmm. What they wait for is some visual confirmation of what's actually taking place, or confirmation from a reliable source, such as a mom or a relative of some sort saying, hey, you better get to shelter. It's coming your way. Mm-hmm. That's the problem that we have, is that people, they don't believe us. And so they want to have a second confirmation one way or another, whether or not it's your own eyes or someone important. So, again, as we head into the rest of 2022 severe storm season, I'm really hoping that it's a little bit calmer. But, you know, we need to be prepared for whatever Mother Nature throws at us. But the main thing that people need to understand is that when we issue any type of warning, severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning, I want people to listen to the warning, find out what communities are impacted by that warning, find out what the threat is going to be, and then make sure ahead of time you know what you're actually going to do. And not only you, but you and your coworkers, your family members, be prepared, because, as you mentioned, there is going to be a next time.
Absolutely. Now, when you block out what people are saying in the peanut gallery, Todd, in your opinion, do you think the public was well informed about the severities of each of these storm systems? And is there anything that maybe you would do differently?
Well, again, anytime we go through an event like the two that we were talking about, we always take a good hard look at it, whether from the National Weather Service side of it or from a local authority working together with the city of Sioux Falls or whatever community it may be. I think the National Weather Service, my staff, provided a great level of service and did the things that they were supposed to do at that point in time. I think where we get into the peanut gallery or the second guessers or whatever you want to say it, really comes down to the fact that, you know, they really didn't know what they should be doing. Yeah. And so they want to blame someone. And if you want to blame the local authorities, you want to blame the National Weather Service, that's fine. But I want you to take a good, hard look at yourself and figure out, am I really prepared? Do I really know what to do? And if you feel that your safety is being jeopardized by whatever weather events coming your way, I hope that you actually take shelter and you don't wait for the siren to go off or for a warning to be issued. I want you to take shelter at that point in time.
Once again, this is Todd Heitkamp. He is with the National Weather Service here in Sioux Falls. Todd, what's that website that people can go follow you guys, and even your Twitter information? That's another good resource too, by the way.
We're on social media, so the best thing that you can do on Facebook or Twitter is just search for U.S. National Weather Service Sioux Falls, and follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. All our warnings will be on Twitter. They will not be on Facebook because the algorithm issue. But then also our website is weather.gov/Sioux Falls. It's another great way to stay up to date with the forecast. But as far as warning information is concerned, I would recommend Twitter at that point in time. And make sure, when you're talking about social media, you follow a credible source. Mm-hmm. Do not follow these fly-by-night chasers or fly-by-night whatever it may be. Follow a credible source such as your local media station, the National Weather Service, local authorities, but make sure it's credible.
All right, awesome. And Todd, in the break of all this weather, I hope you enjoy some fishing too.
I hope I do too, sometime soon, hopefully.
All right, thanks for joining us, Todd.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be back.
Here's a news flash for you. More than 70% of fatal crashes in South Dakota happen on rural highways and local county roads. Hi, I'm Trooper Whitaker with the South Dakota Highway Patrol. It is important to wear your seatbelt whether you are headed to the farm or whether you are headed to the city. Seatbelts are one of the best ways to protect yourself while driving. Always wear a seatbelt. Don't skip the click. This message brought to you by the South Dakota Highway Patrol and Results Town Square Media.
I'm Christine Manica, and you've been listening to Sunday Focus. I'd like to thank Todd Heitkamp from the National Weather Service in Sioux Falls for joining the program today. Once again, if you have any questions about the weather here in Sioux Falls and throughout the state of South Dakota, you can always visit the National Weather Service's website and follow the National Weather Service on Twitter for the latest storm warnings and updates. Join us again next week for another edition of Sunday Focus.